Welcome back to my channel. My name is Jocelyn, and for today's topic, I am going to discuss the effects of traveling if you are a green card holder. If you are going to travel outside of the US, will your permanent residency status be affected? So please take note, there are restrictions when you are traveling depending on your length of stay outside of the US. First question is, does travel outside of the US affect your permanent residency? The answer is no. If you are going to travel outside of the US for a brief period of time, your permanent residency will not be affected. However, there are certain restrictions if you are going to be out of the US for a period of 1 year. The main question to be asked to determine if you have abandoned your permanent residency in the US is that, did you stay outside of the US for more than 1 year? Even if you stayed for less than 1 year, you can still be held to have abandoned your permanent residency based on several indications.
Here are the ways you can lose your permanent residency status. First, moving to another country and intending to live there permanently. Second, declaring yourself a non-immigrant on your US tax returns, or remaining outside of the US for an extended period of time unless it's a temporary absence as shown by the reason of your trip, how long you plan to be absent from the US, any other circumstances of your absence, and any events that may have prolonged your absence. So before you travel abroad, if you know that you will be staying there for a longer period of time, then it is advisable to obtain a re-entry permit from the USCIS before you leave, or a returning resident visa from a US consulate while abroad.
The general question to be asked is that, did you stay outside of the US for more than 1 year? Even if you stayed outside of the US for less than 1 year, you can still be considered to have abandoned your permanent residency in the US based on several indications. But the main guide here is that if you stayed outside of the US for more than 1 year, you are deemed to have abandoned your permanent residency. So be careful when traveling abroad, because if you have found to have abandoned your permanent residency, you cannot go back and stay in the US as a green card holder. It can still be considered as abandonment even if you stayed outside of the US for less than 1 year if you did not intend to make US your permanent residence. Abandonment may still occur based on different criteria. For example, whether your intention was to visit abroad only temporarily. Second, whether you maintained US family and community ties. Another one is that whether you maintained US employment. Also, whether you filed your income tax return as a resident, or you have established your intention to return to the US as your permanent home. Even if you stayed abroad for more than 1 year, you must still establish that there are certain activities that you have maintained that will constitute that you have not abandoned your permanent residency in the US. For example, you still maintain your mailing address, or you still possess a valid driver's license. Also, if you have an active bank account or other indications such as running a business in the US, or other supporting evidences or documents showing that you did not abandon your permanent residency in the US. What is the importance of obtaining a re-entry permit? Obtaining a re-entry permit will grant you permission to go back to the US without even applying for a returning resident visa. So if you are planning to travel abroad for more than 1 year, you must accomplish or submit the re-entry permit before traveling. So this means that even if you don't intend to stay abroad for more than 1 year, it is safe for you to accomplish or submit the re-entry permit if there are instances that are beyond your control, such as if you have medical reasons for not returning back to the US in time, or if you have to take care of personal matters abroad. Also, please take note that the re-entry permit is not a guarantee that you will be admitted back to the US. It is just to establish your intention of permanently residing in the US. Let's say, for example, that you were granted a re-entry permit but you stayed outside of the US for more than 2 years. It is assumed that the re-entry permit may have already expired. Now, your remedy, if you have stayed outside of the US for more than 2 years, is to apply for a returning resident visa. So this is also almost equivalent to applying for an immigrant visa. The only exception for a returning resident visa is that if you're a family member of a US Armed Forces and that a person has been stationed abroad, or you are abroad on official orders. Please take note that if you are applying for US naturalization and if you are traveling abroad, that your absence for 6 months or more can constitute as a disruption of the requirement of maintaining a residence to apply for US naturalization. If you plan to apply for naturalization, there is another form aside from the re-entry permit. So the form is called an application to preserve residence for naturalization purposes. So this form is Form N470. If you're traveling back to the US, US authorities will check your travel documents such as your foreign passport, your driver's license, and your permanent residency and such other documents to establish your permanent residency in the US. Now, if you have an unfortunate incident of losing or missing your green card, you can file a certain form so you can still travel back to the US without having to present a valid green card. The form is called Application for Travel Document, or Form I-131A.
So this is the form that you are going to use if you are returning from temporary travel outside of the US of less than 1 year and your permanent resident card or green card has been lost, stolen, or destroyed. You can also use this form if you are returning from temporary travel outside of the US and your entry permit has been lost or destroyed. Make sure that you fill out the form accurately and answer all of the questions to the best of your knowledge and ability.
If you have any other questions or comments, please post them down below and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Again, thank you guys for supporting my channel. And if you haven't liked this video, please give it a big thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please subscribe and hit that notification bell. I always welcome new subscribers. Thank you guys for watching. I hope everyone is staying safe and have a great day.